welcome back D&D friends and family. We just showed you Waterdeep. It was amazing. We're here in a fantasy world built around what we all love, Dungeons and Dragons, and now we're sitting with some very important people who I know you are all very excited to hear from, because I am as well. Welcome to all of you, and I would love for each of you to introduce yourselves to the people at home in case they're not familiar with who you are and what you do, starting with you, Chris.
I'm Chris Perkins. I am a Dungeons and Dragons story architect.
This group already has the giggles. This is going to be a really good interview.
We've been giggling from the last hour.
We've exhibited tremendous self-control up to this point. I thought
we were silent for like 10 seconds before this.
Yeah,
you were very quiet.
So my job is to tell the stories that help propel our entertainment offerings across all media.
And I'm Mike Merles. I'm the franchise creative director on Dungeons and Dragons. And that's just kind of a fancy way of saying what I do is when Chris is working on a story, I help make sure that story connects to all the platforms, different games that we offer in the community, and just the long-term planning for D&D, making sure each story each year rolls into the next in a way that's like always kind of surprising and fun.
Mm-hmm. My name is Kate Welch. I'm a game designer on D&D. I think that this weekend will mark my 4th month of being a game designer on D&D, and my job is to do whatever he tells me to do.
And I'm Jeremy Crawford. I'm the game's lead rules designer. I'm also the game's editor-in-chief, which means I oversee the creation of the D&D book. So often, Chris will come up with these stories, and then these stories need to be crafted into the books that people cherish in their hands. And the creation of the book itself, that is what I oversee.
He helps turn our words into better words.
Yes, yes. And then I put on my other hat and make sure all the rules are singing and working exactly the way they should.
And all of you also have become really involved in the streaming world as well. A lot of you play a lot of roles. Chris, very familiar with yours. Yes. So tell the people at home what kind of D&D streaming you do as well.
So I stream a weekly show called Dice Camera Action with a stellar cast that includes Anna. And we bring in a lot of guest stars to kind of shake things up. But really, this is a chance to play out the stories that I've been creating in my head. I change a lot to surprise people and to sort of show DMs that they don't have to run the adventure as published. But for me, it's just a great opportunity to kind of put into practice that which was, up to that point, theory in my mind. Will this adventure be fun? I'll know as soon as I run it for you guys.
What about you, Mike?
So I have a show Tuesdays, 1 to 2 p.m. Pacific time. Be sure to tune in. I take the Happy Fun Hour. I take basically the show off the creative process of rules design for DMs who want to homebrew, or people who are just interested in seeing like how does something end up in, where does it start, then how does it end up in the book. So in a lot of cases, I'm basically taking concepts like psionics, something that's not necessarily in the game now, and showing people how we take those initial ideas and basically reach the first draft, which is something that might end up on Jeremy's plate eventually. So it's an hour every week, and it's a lot of fun working with chat to kind of come up with ideas and see the feedback in real time. It's really fun for me, and I hope it's kind of showing people that the process of homebrewing stuff for your own campaigns might not be as daunting as people think.
Yeah, totally. What about you, Kate?
For D&D, I am now the co-host of the Nathan, Kate, and Spoiler Swag Show on the first Friday of every month, which used to be the Fireside Chat, and now I think Nathan got lonely, and so he was like, well, anyone, and I was too much of a sucker because I'm new. I was like, I'll do it.
Yeah.
But it's really fun. And then I also play a character called Rosie Beestinger on the Acquisitions Incorporated, the C Team, which is a franchise that Jerry Holkins from Penny Arcade is our DM. And Acquisitions Incorporated is a streaming show, a live D&D show that's been going on for, what, a decade?
It has a long and checkered history.
It sure does. Chris, of course,
yeah,
the DM
we started. I think we first
it,
started it with the Penny Arcade guys back in 2013, 12 maybe. No, it was. Oh, it's even older than that. It was 2008.
Yeah.
Because we started with 4th edition.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
10 years.
Holy.
And what about you, Jeremy?
So I appear on our Twitch channel to do the Sage Advice segment occasionally, where Greg Tito and I will take different rules questions and we dig deep. Sometimes we'll take a single rules question and talk about it for 40 minutes, just talking about why the rules are designed the way they are, different ways you might want to change the rule as a dungeon master, and then
Change the rules?
Yes.
That's impossible.
Dare.
But which of course we encourage DMs to do all the time. And then recently we've also started having me come on every other Tuesday in the hour after the Happy Fun Hour that Mike does, and then I talk about all the rest of the design process, because as Mike said, he goes into that initial concepting phase, and then I'll talk about the development process that can sometimes span many months as we iterate on the design, as we play test it, as we send it off to editing. So people are starting to see more and more behind the curtain of how we make this game that we all love playing.
I ask all that because, of course, we're going to get into kind of some meat of finally revealing some things that we haven't gotten to yet. But I wanted to ask about streaming because it's become such a big part of what D&D is doing, and the decision to share these big announcements and this big celebration via the stream, via bringing people in. I wanted to ask you guys how that developing community around kind of D&D as entertainment and around streaming and all of that has affected the D&D community and the company.
I think it's demystified the game for a lot of people. It's shown that the rules don't have to get in the way of the fun, and you don't have to be a master of the rules to get started. That you can essentially just roll up your characters, get your campaign sort of half thought out, and just go. And I found that the variety of games that have popped up is just staggering. People are kind of looking at new takes on D&D, or here's a campaign you've never seen before. And for me, that's very invigorating.
And I mean, you guys are sharing, like you said, the development process, how you actually build the game. So when you say demystifying, I'm thinking that must be a whole other side of people kind of looking and saying, oh, you know, maybe I could alter my D&D game, or even maybe I could develop something like that with them someday. You know,
D&D has such a long storied history of you create your own content. This is just another way to get that message out there.
Yeah, because we view D&D not only as a game, but as a hobby. And for a lot of people, this is a creative outlet where they're crafting whole worlds, creating stories, tinkering with the rules. And so we like to not only feed people with stories that they can play, but also give people the tools so that they can tinker and really dig into that hobby side. We have another motivation, and that is we want to inspire the next generation of people who will work on this game, because we will not be working on it forever. And we want excited, informed people who will be able to come in and take up the reins someday.
Well, I know that the people at home are waiting to hear.
Waterdeep Dragon Heist.
And done.
There you have it. Okay, so thanks for tuning
The
in.
new story is called Waterdeep Dragon Heist.
He has
Waterdeep Dragon Heist.
He's been just yelling this out every few
TM.
minutes today.
I think this has
Chris,
been.
one more time for the people in back.
Waterdeep Dragon Heist. That's really good.
It's Waterdeep Dragon Heist?
In print, yeah.
Okay.
That's right.
Okay.
Yes.
Great.
Yes.
Because verbally you don't want them to say the
Correct.
So you had
Right.
to
Yes.
clarify that it was in
that's
print
so, yeah.
specifically.
Not digital though, only in print.
Right.
In digital, it's
Yes.
the ASCII code. We have to figure out what that's.
Okay, Chris.
Sign 17.
Now that you've spit it out, do you feel better?
I do.
Okay, good.
Now I can just,
Now tell us, what is Waterdeep Dragon Heist?
It is a very different story from the ones that precede it, which was the goal. In previous stories, we've taken you to battles against Tiamat, we've taken you to Barovia, we've had you fight giants across all of the north, and we've sent you down to Chult to stop a horrible, horrible death curse. Waterdeep Dragon Heist takes D&D back to civilization in a much more, in an environment which encourages a lot of role-playing. And it's a very toolbox type experience where we'll give you all the toys to play in an urban romp, and then you can make the most of that as a DM, as you will.
Urban romp.
An urban romp inspired by heist films. So, hence the title, hence half of the title. So,
After the call.
a lot of the inspiration was things like Ocean's 11 and The Italian Job in a city environment, where the main goal of the adventure is to try to find a trove of treasure hidden in the city that villains are chasing after. And you've got to keep it out of their hands because with all that money, they'll do nefarious things. Right.
And I suppose if you were nefarious yourself, that wouldn't really get in the way.
Right, but you'd still want it.
Right.
Right. So even if treasure isn't your bag, keeping it out of the hands of these miscreants is a noble act. And Waterdeep is such multivaried cultures, and it's almost like several small towns wrapped into one, that I don't think anybody's ever going to get dull hanging out there for the period of time that we want you to. And while you're looking for this lost treasure, as happens in a crowded city, there's thousands of other things going on, distractions around every corner that are always sort of testing you and kind of tugging at you and pulling you away. Can you stay focused on the mission at hand, or will you give up time and let the villains get what they're after?
And if you do give up time, what kind of repercussions might you face?
You might not get the treasure. The villains might get the treasure and do the prescribed evil things that they're going to do with that treasure. But I wouldn't say it's like a ticking clock. It's not a countdown to annihilation or anything like that. The DM has breathing room to sort of expand it out and make it last as long and as painfully as possible. I love the story because it's not a world-shattering event. It feels very much grounded, and you can easily experience, you get the sense that you can lose yourself in this city and learn that Waterdeep is a person, it's a character. It has a personality of its own. I think after the player characters, Waterdeep is probably the most important character in the story.
Absolutely.
And one of the great things about it is it's a very adventurer-friendly city, because Waterdeep's been saved multiple times by adventurers over the years. Force Grey, other groups have come to its rescue. So the people of Waterdeep know what adventurers are like, and they've got sort of a New York blasé attitude about most things in life anyway, so it doesn't shock them to see Tabaxi and Goliaths and other strange folk wandering around. They're kind of used to it. So I think that it's welcoming, and if you are a smart party of adventurers, you will get on the city's good side, because Waterdeep can be very, very good to adventurers who are good to it. It's when you do bad things in the city and bad things to its people that the city can turn on you, and you don't want that.
Yeah.
Waterdeep is your friend.
Tell me a little bit more about a place as a character. I think in terms of even development, that must be something that's really interesting to kind of take on.
So in the book, we delve into not only the story that Chris has talked about, but we delve into what is it like to not only be in Waterdeep specifically, but just in a city of this size. In many ways, Waterdeep is like the New York City of the Forgotten Realms. And we tell you about like what's going to happen to you if you commit egregious crimes, and here's what the Watch is going to do as they come and get you. What happens if you get arrested? What kind of nightlife is there? What is the city like as the seasons change? Because one of the wonderful things in a city of the real world is the city's face changes with each season. Different holidays occur. The weather changes people's daily life, and we delve into all of that in this book, and make it so that you can really sink into the city, and frankly, use the city even if you don't want to use the story. This was one of our goals.
Yes, absolutely.
Is if you just want Waterdeep, we're giving it to you.
With a bunch of characters that you can just use in that sense. You said something about the seasons.
Seasons, yes.
Yes.
And they're pretty essential.
Yeah, and that is one of my favorite things about this adventure, aside from the urban quality of it, giving you this place that you can dig deep in, is we created it to be a replayable adventure. Something that we love about the original Ravenloft, which for many of us is our favorite adventure, is that adventure, every time you played it, could change based on your Taroko reading. So Chris had the brilliant idea of doing something similar here, where the DM at the outset decides what the villain is going to be for the adventure. So we talked about this sort of a gang warfare. There's this treasure to get, but then there's also a villain who is bit of extra spice and a source of great dangers and other complications. Or in some cases, amusement, actually, depending on.
Right.
And we don't want to spoil who the villains are, but the DM decides which of the 4 villains to use, and then that choice determines which season of the year a lot of the adventure will take place in.
Ooh.
Meaning you could actually play through this adventure at least 4 times and have it feature completely different parts of the city, feature different groups of NPCs, expose you to different aspects of the city's annual rhythm. So that's why we have often been talking about this book as this wonderful urban toy box.
Yep.
Wow.
One of the ways that we invest you in the city right from the outset is you can complete an introductory quest for a certain well-known individual in the realms. And if you are successful, he gives to you the deed to a piece of property in the city. So that you can basically put a flag down and say, you know, Waterdeep is now our city. We have a base here.
A home base?
Yes.
Could it be?
Yes. And it's the first adventure where we've actually built into the adventure downtime.
Really?
Where we expect you to break away at some point and just kind of manage your affairs in the city.
Yeah.
And give yourself some time to settle in and really get used to it before things go pear-shaped.
There are a variety of downtime mechanics actually designed into this book, if I'm not mistaken.
And advice on how you can develop your tavern,
Yes.
how you can make it fancier. Because the structure of the adventure is you kind of have this, it's almost like it starts with a side quest. You think, and this is not much of a spoiler because it's at the beginning, you think, here's the main story. Then there's a potential long pause. The DM could actually have that pause last months, years. and we designed it so if the DM wanted to drop a whole other campaign in Waterdeep or short adventure or long adventure, you could do it after that introductory bit. And then the DM decides when the heist really gets going. And so there's sort of like a little hint of it at the beginning, pause, and length of that pause determined by how deep do they want to dig into the city's life, and then the caper starts.
Now we've seen some posters and stuff that have hinted at some of the threats that you'll see, and the way we build our products, and Mike can speak to this, is we have tethers not just between our adventures but also our other rules books. So Xanathar's Guide to Everything was an immensely successful book from last year, and the Xanathar, being a central figure in Waterdeep's politics, does play a role in this story. So we knew back when we were creating Dragon Heist that these 2 books would be tied together by this figure. So that was a cool opportunity. The other thing that Dragon Heist does is it plucks some of the mechanical bits from Xanathar's Guide and puts them into practical use. For instance, Mike, I think you were the one who developed the NPC rivals.
Yeah, that's right, for the
System?
downtime system,
Yeah. And so we actually built in, if you like start a tavern in the city, you get a rival.
Yeah.
And that uses the tech from the Xanathar's book.
Yeah, and that's all about making the city come to life as a character. We don't want you to just treat this as any other location you've been to. We really want, I think, Chris, it'd be fair to say, if the players fall in love with Waterdeep like they would their hometown, that's what we want. Because once the players have that real connection, say like the tavern they've worked so hard to build up, and they see it flourishing. As a dungeon master, you burn that thing. You set that on fire.
That's extreme.
Like, you go after it, right? Whoever that villain is, like, you know.
I was thinking, somebody put a nasty note on your door. You're like, no, just...
But that's part of that connection, that it's your city. So when you have one of these villains who, it's not just, I don't want the villain to get the gold because that's bad. It's like, no, I want, because this is my city. If, I lived in New York City for a few years. I've lived in Boston, and you get that sense that this is mine. I'm part of it. And that is something which you really want to develop in this storyline. That's why when Chris was talking about it, I was just like, I'm all in. This is fantastic. Easiest work, week at work I had. Like, easy. This is awesome. Let's just do it, right? And I'll be back next Monday, guys, right? Like, but it's just, for me, I love cities. Like we're here in Los Angeles. I've been walking everywhere to just get the vibe of it, and I think that's what appeals to me so much about this. That initial, creative brief you built was really getting the players to fall in love with the city. And
there's so many charming characters in Waterdeep, and some of them dating back years and years and years. I mean, developed by Ed Greenwood and other authors. early on, we dust off a lot of familiar faces for this product, and some of them are just absolutely lovely, like the Open Lord of Waterdeep, Laeral Silverhand. She used to be a Viking queen. She's lived for thousands of years. She ruled a kingdom, and now she's like this political figure in the city, but she used to be an adventurer, first and foremost. So the ruler of the city is someone that you can almost aspire to, or is like the party in a lot of ways. She gets them. And so if you can get on her good side, that's a huge plus.
Yeah. And there are other Forgotten Realms favorites who make appearances in this book. Jarlaxle. He's in the art.
I
so.
know. I'm just being a drama queen.
Yeah, people will figure out Jarlaxle is in this.
He's also silhouetted in the animated intro for Dice Camera Action.
Yes.
So
Show up there.
we're not being
Theories confirmed.
too much of a spoiler. But how will he show up? What's his interest in Waterdeep? What's his interest, if he has any, in the treasure? These are all mysteries that we'll keep under wraps for now. But anybody who's read the Dritz novels knows Jarlaxle is a complex, multifaceted character. Your best friend or your worst enemy all rolled into one.
Yep.
I'm so excited, and I'm interested, Kate, in, you said this is only month 4 for you, coming in on and starting on this adventure. What has that been like?
Well, I have been...
Terrible.
It's been a nightmare, frankly.
Every day is drudgery.
It's hell. I have to work with these fools.
Yeah.
Just like my heroes or whatever.
Truth be told, Kate is utterly fantastic.
Chris, no, to make me cry.
It's no.
Oh, this is
honest to God's.
So this interview is now about how wonderful Kate is.
Yay!
He's that
Yes.
he's
Coming
interview.
this way anyway.
Yes.
I'm perfectly happy with that design direction.
So my involvement with this particular product has been a lot of learning opportunities. So things like
Chris doesn't know as much as he thinks he does.
learning a lot about that. No, it's been quite a bit of Jeremy saying, hey, there's this part of Dragon Heist that we're working on right now. Why don't you come learn about the process as we design this product, which has been, of course, like hands-on learning is the best. And so getting to see the phase of this product, where it's at, the development, working in InDesign and working with editors, working on a monster design with you, stat blocks till my eyes bleed.
Working on future products that speak to this one.
Correct.
And seeing those tethers being created. Yeah,
it's all been a huge, wonderful learning opportunity. So.
I think there are some interesting mechanics that we may not be familiar with yet involved in this, right? Can we talk about any of those mechanics?
Such as?
Nathan kind of teased before we did this interview that...
Say it in Pig Latin so they don't understand
Right,
it.
yeah, I'll keep it. He said that, when you're looking around Waterdeep here and you're looking at some of these storefronts, that may be a clue to some of the things you have to expect.
Oh, now we're looking like
I'm like, what?
I mean, I'm not going to prod any further because I might be spoiling something.
It's possible one of the things you have in mind is, in addition to downtime being incorporated into the story, we also make some use of the chase rules that are in the Dungeon Master's Guide, and then expand them to add in urban components that are specific to Waterdeep, but also that a DM could easily lift and use in another city. Because we're expecting, it is a heist story, that there are going to be chases in the city, and so we've given you the means to play those out. If you decide to use rules for it, because we also expect a DM might just sort of look at the story outline and wing it, but if you want some dice rolls and sort of the uncertainty, even as a dungeon master, of rules to come into play, and where even the DM doesn't know how this chase is going to play out.
Right.
We have rules to make that happen.
We also have to provide things that we know players are going to need when they start wandering around Waterdeep, like where can they buy such and such? Or can they buy potions or scrolls in Waterdeep? That kind of thing. So we provide for that as well.
And if I'm running a tavern, it sounds like I may need some help with that,
Yes.
right?
So Waterdeep has sort of a way of operating. We kind of walk through that, and then we talk about expenses and things like that, which don't sound very exciting on the surface. But I know some players out there are just dying to kind of experience that and actually play a type of D&D game that they don't normally get to play.
As is normal for our adventure books, there are going to be a number of new magic items in the book, some of which are storied items of the Forgotten Realms and specifically of the city of Waterdeep. I mean, the Black Staff itself is in the book.
That's right.
And
Both the Black Staff and the Black Staff. The person and the spell and the staff.
And then also we have a number of NPC stat blocks that will excite people because, again, some of these famous Forgotten Realms figures, they have stats in this book, and even have stats for the giant walking statues of the city.
Really?
Should, for some reason, those statues get animated. And then suddenly there will be these kaiju-sized statues stomping all over our beloved Waterdeep.
Wow.
Not for the first time, mind you.
Yes.
Yeah.
You should really just get rid of those statues.
Yeah.
It's just inviting danger.
So in terms of people, a lot of people have been involved in this project, not just the people here. Right now, Jeremy and I are kicking files back and forth with Emmy Tanji, who is our graphic designer, who makes our books stunningly beautiful every time. We've got Kate Irwin, art directing the interior art. We've got Shauna Narciso, who did the cover. We've got, for this project, we had 2 consultants. We had 2 freelance writers. We drafted Matt Cernett to channel Volo, and have Volo give a walking tour of Waterdeep in the book.
Really?
Yes.
Ooh.
Yes, it's all in his perspective, in his voice.
Wow.
So
That final chapter, yeah, because
Yes.
there's a chapter sort of outside actually the adventure itself, which is just Volo talking about Waterdeep.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm hearing so much of the kind of, I don't know, love you guys have for some of these ideas about giving people room to expand or giving people time, downtime, or kind of some of these fantastical things like if a statue comes to life, or chases, things like that. What motivated this adventure right now? What was the desire to give players this experience at this point in the narrative of D&D overall?
I think whenever we work on one of these adventures that we release, is our big story for the year. One of the ideas that I always have in mind is this idea of the gaming bookshelf. And each of these stories up there, and then think, if this is what my bookshelf looks like right now, if I just added Tomb of Annihilation to it last year, what's the next piece I can put up there that can be really distinct? To make me feel as a dungeon master, I have a really wide range of stories I could turn to. Because we're not just thinking about next year for D&D, we're thinking like 10 years from now. If someone's starting a campaign and they look at all these adventures that are available, how does each one speak to them? And every dungeon master is different. Everyone has a different creative voice, a different approach to things. How can we serve as wide an audience as possible? We know each adventure is going to have its specific tone, its specific feel.
Right. Yeah.
But when we think of all the adventures collected together, how the wider the better. And that's really what we aim for. And so I think, for me at least, one of the big pieces of the appeal, I love cities, it's always something I like, but just the idea it has a very distinctive flavor. It really is, Chris, it'd be fair to say this is not an adventure where you can just expect to fight your way through everything.
Correct.
Because you're in a civilized,
Yes.
you're in civilization.
It will probably end in your arrest.
Yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That it has that you're not in the edge of civilization,
Yeah.
you're in the heart of civilization.
There are sort of dark places in Waterdeep where you can go to indulge your, shall we say, violent tendencies. There are sort of dungeons in Waterdeep. The city is big enough and has enough above and beneath it to still preserve a dungeon aspect. But as Mike says, you've got to manage yourself differently in this adventure.
Yeah.
It challenges players in a different way from our other adventures. And that's just interesting to explore.
And not only did we want those changes, but we also wanted to give you something that you really could actually play in a few months. Because if you decide to just go up against one of the villains and sort of do the heist, you could actually play through pretty quickly. And then you have left all this rich material if you want to explore more in Waterdeep, or you could then do
or
some
if the
stories.
players have some sort of self-directed thing that they want to do, you have you're armed with enough information that you can kind of invent additional content on your own.
Yeah, and so we wanted to give DMs the ability to sort of accordion the length a little more. Because some of our stories that we've done over the last couple of years have been, these thrilling, epic stories, but they can take many, many months to play through. And again, we're constantly in conversation with fans, and one thing that we do here is, as much as people love those epic adventures, they also want more options for shorter play experiences. And honestly, this book kind of gives you both, and really you get to decide how deep are we going to go?
Oh, that's really smart, you guys.
What are you guys hoping to see? I mean, like you said, players and DMs are coming up with new and exciting campaigns that kind of, you said, inspire you even. What kind of inspiration are you hoping people draw from this, and what do you think you're going to see in terms of the next kind of wave of either streamed games or home games or feedback or things that people are creating back at you? Because I know that they'll create a lot back toward you as well.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what the DMs Guild does with it. Like once the book's out there, seeing what the Guild adepts do, because I think that's going to be something that I think, to me personally, one of the bellwethers I have for a book's success is what is the community building with it. You know, how much are we inspiring people to think, I want to write a story, I want to build something, I want to share it. Because I think that's such the heart of Dungeons and Dragons. When we see people taking what we started and then doing their own take on it and getting it out there, that to me is really inspiring. I love seeing that.
What I want to see is like a Cheers style game, like a live stream game
Right.
that
Yes.
is all about the drama between people in a bar. Like that's, you could literally just start a show and never leave
Absolutely.
the bar. And that has never happened, I don't think, in any D&D game that I've ever seen, not long term, right?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of possibility that you can kind of have like just like a bottle show now.
Yeah, there are things that we couldn't fit in the adventure, but we found homes for. Like, we had a conversation recently with Chris Lindsay, who manages our Adventurers League program, to talk about what the Adventurers League adventures tied to Waterdeep Dragon Heist will be. And there was a character that we wanted to put in Dragon Heist, but it was literally bursting at the seams. We could not cram this very important Waterdavian figure in. But he is now the central focus of that other campaign that is going to run parallel to Dragon Heist. And he's another sort of complicated figure. I think he's going to create a very different style of play, and I can imagine those experiences being some of the most fun experiences people have ever had playing Dungeons and Dragons.
Really?
Absolutely.
That's a lofty claim.
Absolutely. I don't want to spoil. I'll let Lindsay spoil it if he gets a chance, as far as who the character is. But he has been a fixture in Waterdeep for a long time.
I'm hoping we're going to see a lot of Waterdeep fan art. So we see a lot of fantastic fan art of people's characters. I'm hoping that as people explore the city and start experiencing it as a character, as we described, that we'll start seeing fan art of the city itself, like what each group's tavern looks like how have they decorated it? You know, what crazy statue did they put in the middle, or did they knock down a wall and have some crazy castle turret they added to it? I want to see all of that.
I want to make a mobile app where it's like, design your Waterdeep Tavern. Cut that. Well, that's IP.
This is a live show.
Right after this, by the way, I've been given permission to tweet out some of the art from the interior of Dragon Heist, so I'll be doing that.
Oh, yeah.
So when they see the art, they might, and so months and months and months ago, Matt Sternett and I did a Lore You Should Know, where we talked a little bit about Lantan. And I'm going to just say it. We have a Lantanese submarine in this adventure.
A submarine?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. That's really funny.
I know.
And you can't tell us anything, I'm sure, about like how that submarine comes into play or
Nope,
how we can
nope,
interact with it.
No.
Okay.
But I look forward to seeing the first models of it.
Yes.
Because I think people will actually build it.
It's so fun to talk to you guys about this because every single one of you kind of lights up when you talk about Waterdeep. And I know that you're saying, we want people to love Waterdeep the way we do and get to know it as if it were a character.
And we want them to trash it completely.
But I'm curious, even on a personal level, if you can share for people who are anticipating.
Barbarians open, Lord, now.
Better get the question.
I'm used to it.
Where do I mean?
This is not new. This is not new for Anna.
This is not new. But I'm just curious if you can share with people who may be like, I don't know, like Waterdeep's fine. What is it that you love about it that you're excited for people to experience?
So I played in a campaign that was set in Waterdeep. That was a while ago. What I loved about it was there was this noble family that we were struggling. They were total bastards and no one knew, but we knew and no one believed us. So what was hilarious was the DM would just, whenever we'd go, like be wandering around doing some business, and this person from the noble family comes by. And we're like,
can't just stab this jerk in the head. Right?
Yeah.
But that's what I loved about it was that duality, and then we'd be out of the city and we'd come across them, and it's like, okay, now we're gonna settle the score. But it was just that parallel feeling of like when you're up on the streets of the city, you had to be civilized, and it was hard. I was playing a really crude dwarf fighter, so it was kind of hard, especially for my character. But so I love that feeling of being in a civilized area as a character and thinking you have to really think differently.
Yeah, and I love the potential that a smart character can weaponize that.
Yeah.
That they can basically use the city as a weapon to do their dirty work for them.
Right.
I think that's really, really interesting.
In terms of the laws and things.
Yes, yes. Like lure bad guys into basically committing crimes, or use your standing with like a lord of Waterdeep or a magistrate, someone that you've earned trust, or one of the factions, and basically have them stomp around and do things for you, or get things for you.
Or the reverse, right?
Yes.
That if you're not careful, your enemies could turn that against you.
Right.
Yes.
Absolutely.
So in a city like Waterdeep, there are things like Harper agents, and Zentarum agents, and Lord's Alliance agents, and agents from all the factions, really. Those people are there. We talk about them in the adventure. We talk about how these factions operate within the constraints of the city. And also, in the section after that Jeremy was talking about earlier, in the chapter that falls between the introductory quest and the main thing, we talk about side quests that you can go on for these factions to earn standing with them, and also to get special favors, which comes in handy.
Rep, grind, rep, grind.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that, because a part of it is we give long lists of all the major guilds of the city and how your character can be tied to those guilds.
Yes.
And might build up renown with them.
Yes, and there are some strange faction options, like, and we had to account for weird party compositions. Like when you're playing a D&D game, I don't know as the adventure writer what your party composition is, but I have to think about the adventure and how it can withstand different kinds of parties. If you have a party of drow, how does that work in Waterdeep? Well, it can. There are mechanisms in this adventure that allow that to be, and I think that's one of the strengths of Waterdeep.
Yeah, it's so cosmopolitan.
Yeah.
You could have that party, and it's weird, but it doesn't bring the adventure to a halt.
Right.
And that sort of links back to your question about like what do we specifically like about Waterdeep. I love that a city that big really allows almost anything to happen in Dungeons and Dragons, because not only is the city a character, but a city that big is actually one of the only environments in D&D where I feel like the whole notion of the random encounter feels organic. Because random encounters have been with us since the beginning of D&D. Some people love them, some people hate them, and and sometimes they can create these delightful oddities that everyone remembers, or they'll create this random thing and people are like, this has nothing to do with anything going on. The thing I love about Waterdeep and other large D&D cities like it is random things can happen like that, but because of the urban fabric, it's very easy for the DM to come up with, why is this happening? Well, there's this festival going on, or you were right in front of this bakery, and this is why this monster that was in the sewers and really hungry burst up, and
He just wanted cupcakes.
yeah, he just wanted cupcakes.
Don't we all?
That's true, right?
And after they defeat that Otyugh, they imprison it and they name it Cupcake.
Right.
But see, cities for me are kind of like the best canvas for just DM improv. Because it's really easy to just hang random events on different places in the city, different people in the city, different factions in the city. And when you add in how much magic there is in the city of Waterdeep, that it's built on top of one of the biggest dungeons in any D&D world, it's like pretty much anything can happen in this place.
You mentioned that this is going to be a perfect backdrop for DM improv, and I know there are a lot of people who are already starting to think, like, how can I make this mine? What can I do? As people prepare, what are some of the things that dungeon masters or players might want to either research or develop in themselves to be really ready to play this adventure?
I think as a dungeon master, maybe investigate like the best way to set a tavern on fire.
Okay.
Right, in terms of getting your villains ready for how to take that.
I mean, a fireball's just too simple. Like,
you want something, it might be a little too much of a flash thing. I think rules-wise, I don't know if a fireball actually would set the structure on fire. fire. So you might want to maybe hit up Jeremy with a few like questions on
Gotcha.
Twitter
Okay.
to just make it clear.
So it turns out Fireball does set unintended things
Oh,
on
it does.
fire.
Right.
Fantastic. Would that apply to a building
Yeah.
that the blind players love more than anything else they've ever encountered in D&D?
Yeah, I feel like if you cast that at like 6th level.
I'm sorry, what was the question?
I mean, let's just talk about fireballs for this.
Right, yeah.
Right.
It was, how do people prepare for this? What are some of the skills they might want to do, or research they might want to do?
I think that, so we designed this to be self-contained, and the Waterdeep that we describe is kind of a neutral Waterdeep. We expect DMs to skin their Waterdeep however they wish. So, and it says right out there in the text, we're going to give you as much material as we can cram in to help you bring the city alive, and hopefully the organization of the book will help DMs wrap their brain around it. That you should feel like this is your Waterdeep. You can do whatever you want. If you want to replace the Open Lord with a character from your own campaign, yes. That won't shatter the usefulness of the adventure in any way, shape, or form. If you want to move locations around or add your own gods, Waterdeep can accommodate. It's absolutely flexible. So I think that it's easy with a city that's been around so long and so much has been written about it to get lost in the lore of the past, and that is not necessarily the most important thing. But if you are looking for something really cool to look at, you might be able to find on DM's Guild the City System box set,
That's right, yeah.
which has, if nothing else, just a bunch more maps.
Yeah.
In it. Piles and piles of more city maps and building maps and things like that you can use on the fly. That was one of our go-to resources when there was so much written about Waterdeep, we kind of focused on bringing forward things from certain resources more than others. The City System box set was one of our go-to places for inspiration. And most of it's just tables. It's like, here's a list of stuff that you can pickpocket in Waterdeep.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah.
That sounds fun.
So that was heavily inspiration. So if you can find a copy of that, that's not a bad thing to have as in your back pocket. But other than that, the product should be able to fly out on its own.
And I think also if people come at it remembering, again, this is a theme we keep coming back to, that the city's a character, and a part of that is it's a living organism, which is true of cities in the real world, and they are constantly changing. And so if anyone who's listening to us is terrified of, oh my God, it's New York City essentially, with all these NPCs and all these places to remember, DMs can just rest knowing that, like any city in our world, things are changing constantly. And so if the DM can't remember the names of the districts or certain NPCs, that's fine, because it could just turn out like those businesses closed yesterday. Those NPCs are on vacation somewhere, or they vanished into Undermountain, and who knows where they are.
Wow. It's Friday, everything's changed.
Yeah. So really, this is an opportunity for DMs in a way to both dive into this heavily detailed thing, but also to relax a bit. We often like to say, make it your own.
And make it your party zone. Every party composition is different, so every player group that you have is different. As a DM, you learn to customize your adventure for the players that you are entertaining. And some guidance is given to that as well. I wanted to mention that this product does include a big-ass poster map of the city of Waterdeep.
Technical term.
With all the city streets labeled and detail, players will need to know where their temples are.
Many of the streets.
Yeah, well, that's true. Not all the streets are named.
Yeah.
We actually don't want to name all the streets
Right.
because DMs like to create their own content, and so leaving some street names blank is good. But the main ones are, so that you can get your bearings. And things like temples are marked, because the first thing people are going to ask after their first encounter is, where's the nearest temple?
And in the meantime, of course, people can play our game Lords of Waterdeep, the board game, if they want to see, get familiar with how the city is laid out. But the map that Chris mentioned goes in way more detail than the painting on the board for that game.
One of the things that I enjoyed when I played Adventurers League before that is kind of tied into this is that I think it's going to be really fun for people to compare their Waterdeep to other people's Waterdeeps. Like once you have a bunch of friends who are out there playing Dragon Heist, and you are running different games, whatever you're on Roll20 or you're watching streamed games, to kind of like be able to compare notes of like, wow, that is a completely splinter universe Waterdeep that I was in. And this happens in the AL games because you all are sitting around, at least the one I did, you're all sitting around playing the same adventure. And then you can kind of like grab a beer afterward and be like, so how'd that play out for you,
Yeah.
right? Like, and so you get to swap stories that aren't your own, and you have these tales to tell of this place that you made yours.
Cool. And with the taverns, I imagine too. I mean, even if we end up in the same Waterdeep, having different taverns that we could visit and things like that.
Yeah.
I can't wait. And I know a lot of others can't wait as well. And so the big question on everyone's mind is, when do we get our hands on this? And I have that information for you. You're welcome. On September 6th.
I wasn't going to tell you.
Yeah. I already have it written down, Kate. You can't stop me. September 6th in game stores. That's when you can find it in game stores. And then following that everywhere else on September 18th. So, Chris, I know that you've been on pins and needles. This has been very hard for you not to talk about. And now you have to wait till September.
I'm fine now.
You're fine now?
Yeah.
You're not worried about waiting till September till people
Nope.
can play it?
I have a copy.
Yeah.
Have fun, guys, not having a copy. I'll just be over here with my copy. Yeah, and I think this is, I mean, obviously the intrigue, diplomacy, stealth, and wit are going to be big players here. I've been told this is going to be like Gangs of New York meets Dan Brown. Is there anything yet to say about this on those that we have not covered that you just feel the people need to know before we talk about the rest of the stream? We have talked about a lot, so if there's not.
Yeah, we have.
I think this book rewards creative problem solving more than most adventures do. So flex those creative problem solving muscles. Think outside the box. That's going to be a really good way to get ready for Dragon Heist, I think.
I think it's got just some fantastic art. I look forward to showing it off.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about some of the talent that brought this adventure to light. First and foremost, Ed Greenwood. There's no way Waterdeep could exist in its current form without everything that he's done to bring it to life over the years, and a lot of the characters that he has basically helping to give its identity so much potency. But our two freelancers, James Hake and James Intracaso, we're working with for the first time. Although I'm on a printed book, James, they've both done work in third-party publishers and DM's Guild and stuff like that, but they brought a new voice to sections of the book, which was important. And our consultants, who helped us shape the story early on, Charlie Sanders, one of the writers of Key and Peele, helped us flesh out the Xanathar's criminal organization, and Matthew Mercer, storied.
Familiar with that?
Yeah, storied DM, runs a little show called Critical Something or Other.
What?
Yeah, Critical Role. Who sat down with us and helped us hammer out the villains, their motives, and where we can find the cool. Where's the cool in this story?
Is that a technical term?
Yeah.
Where's the
Yeah,
cool?
where's the cool?
So if the story's not cool, it's Matt Mercer's fault.
You heard it here first.
She said straight into the camera. No, it was.
I know you're watching.
It's always a joy to bring outside folks in for their fresh perspective, so that we can peel open their heads and feast on the brains within.
You're not supposed to reveal that we're
course.
mind flayers.
You're not controlled by
Yeah,
mind flayers,
Nope.
no matter what Chris just said.
100% not.
I'm
God
using
damn
my powers. You didn't remember that we're mind flayers.
Sorry.
Well, we are moving into the rest of the stream now. We've kind of kicked things off. We've finally revealed this. We've let Chris breathe. And we are going to have today both Force Grey right after this, as well as an episode of Dice Camera
That's right.
Action. And then, of course, we've got a continuous narrative, kind of a really cool mashup role-playing situation. In fact, Kate, can you tell us a little bit about what's happening tomorrow?
Can I?
Just, you know,
Okay.
the broad strokes. What can people expect to watch in this kind of continuous narrative?
So what's happening tomorrow is there are 3 table games, I think, and then 3 off-the-table sessions. I'm part of the off-the-table cast, so between these table games, the choices and the stories that are crafted will be then impacting what's going on in this off-the-table environment, which is a crazy, wild journey that I have no idea how it's gonna go. But imagine, if you will, a like escape room meets a LARP, but not like 100% both. Like it is not a LARP, it is not an escape room. But I will be playing Rosie Beestinger, and we're gonna try to
In
solve
your
some
full
puzzles.
Rosie regalia.
I will have my costume.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And is it here in this space?
Yeah,
Fantastic.
so each session takes place in a different part of this Waterdeep set that we have built. And yeah, whatever is happening on those table games is going to affect whatever is going to happen with us too. So we'll see how that goes. I think it's going to be madness,
Yeah.
and it's going to be really fun.
I mean, add escape rooms, LARP, D&D together.
know.
These are all things I am into.
I know,
So I'm super
100%,
into it.
yes.
Yeah.
Well, and I'm hoping it will answer the crucial question, and that is, why is there a giant hunk of meat behind us?
That's the only.
And a pig's head.
Well, I thought that was a craft
Yeah.
table for after.
We're not. That's actually a really
That is the great
critical,
mystery.
It's a critical part of the Dragon Heist storyline.
Okay.
So that's a spoiler.
As a 16-year vegetarian, I'm gonna not maybe partake in that part.
Yes,
of
I'm also a vegetarian.
Okay, good. I'm glad we're together on this being our backdrop. As I said, we'll have that tomorrow. There's also going to be Sirens of the Realms, Girls Guts Glory, Rivals of Waterdeep, and Dark and Dicey tomorrow as well. And then on Sunday, we have a game DM'd by Mark Holmes. I think it's called Adventure Improbable. A lot of familiar faces there, as well as Dice Camera Action, a game DM'd by Deborah Ann Wall, and Jox Machina. All of those on Sunday can be attended by anyone who wants to come by as well, tickets are still available if you wanted to purchase tickets and come. So as people watch the rest of the stream from the experts, is there anything that you want to point out of like you're really excited
Don't break
for
my
it?
story. DMs. No.
Break his
Yeah.
story.
Break his story.
Break his story.
Yes. I look forward to seeing how Waterdeep comes alive in each of these different takes. I think it's going to be a big eye opener in terms of what you can do.
And we are going to see elements of Dragon Heist in these games?
There will be some mystery, intrigue, wit, I hope.
Not with me at the table.
I mean, now that's like a lot of pressure on the players. I mean,
Yeah. And hopefully no killing.
okay.
Yeah.
Well, I can't promise anything.
You'll get arrested. The City Watch will take you away.
Well, thank you guys so much. This has been an absolute pleasure. I know it means a lot to the community to hear directly from you guys. I know that, Chris, you said you're going to be tweeting out some art, so people
Yes.
should definitely go check that out. And where is the #1 portal where people should go to learn more?
The D&D website. So dnd.wizards.com.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you guys so much.
Oh, and Dragon Plus.
Yes.
When it comes out. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, there will be more about Dragon Heist in the next issue of Dragon Plus.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And you'll also hear more about what our partners are doing tied to the city in the days, weeks, and months to follow.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you guys so much. And now we have some live games to attend to. So don't go anywhere because we will be right back with Force Grey in just a little bit.